I met Matt when I was a freshman in high school and fell in love with him, and he was serving his first year in the Navy. It was love at first sight for the both of us.
3 years later, on June 1st of 2002, we were married and had every ambition of starting the American family, having our own house, biological children.
We wanted to get pregnant right away and start a family, and about 3 months after we got married, we had our first miscarriage. And
that was pretty devastating for both of us. Jessica took it a lot harder than I did, I believe, at the time. But we relied on the Lord to bring us through that time, and He did. Roughly 6 months later, Jessica had her second miscarriage.
When we had the second miscarriage, it really shattered our dreams to have a family of our own. But shortly after that, a few months later, we had some friends say, well, have you guys ever thought of adopting? And we thought, well, we've talked about it. We always thought, oh, we'll have kids of our own first, and then maybe we'll adopt some kids. But we had no idea that that's what God had in store for us. After we both prayed about it, the Lord changed our heart, and we decided that it was not His will for us to do fertility treatments, and we needed to follow through with adoption. And we went through the process part of the way with this baby, and the birth mom ended up changing her mind when it got closer to delivery. And we were devastated once again. It was like losing a child all over again, except it was probably a little harder on us this time than it was even with the miscarriages, because we had already picked out a name. We knew it was going to be a little girl. I remember we stayed up late that night that she changed her mind, and we prayed, and we felt like God was giving us hope, and we could cling to that hope, and He had a better plan in store. And then that's when He called us to adopt internationally, and we found that Guatemala has an adoption program, and it was a really good program at the time, and they were really needing families to adopt children. And so we signed up and we went through the process. It was a long process, and God used that time to prepare us. And 6 months after we signed the papers, we got the news that we had a daughter, Anaya Grace.
We traveled to Guatemala as fast as we could. As soon as we could get a next plane ride down there, we were on the plane. We arrived in Guatemala for the first time when she was roughly 5 months old. I think she weighed right at 6, maybe 7 pounds, so she was itsy bitsy when we saw her for the first time and actually got to hold her.
So after a week of being with her, we had to say goodbye, and we had to just trust that the Lord was going to sustain her. And we went home and we prayed that God would speed up the adoption process, because we knew that she might not survive if she had to stay there for an extended amount of time. And so God is so faithful. He answered our prayers, and she came home just 6 weeks later. She surpassed all of our hopes and dreams for a child. We had in our head what we thought in the beginning what our family should look like, or what we thought we wanted as a family. And God knew so much better for us. When Anaya was 2 years old, we knew that God wanted us to grow our family, and we of course knew it was going to be through adoption. We started looking into different options because Guatemala had closed their doors to adoptions, and the children couldn't be adopted from that country anymore. And we prayed and we sought the Lord on what to do, because our heart was to adopt another child of Guatemalan heritage so they could share that common bond. So we started looking into programs in the U.S. For domestic adoption.
I believe 6 months after that was when we had been told that a birth mother had picked us.
We went to the hospital and we were there when he was born, and it was a healthy baby boy. Everything went great, and we took the baby home, and he was with us for a few days, and then we got a phone call that she had changed her mind. And that was probably, out of all the trials we've been through, that was the hardest.
It was a pretty dark time, and in our marriage and in our lives. I think eventually, we realized that, it wasn't God's fault that we're hurting. It's just his overall plan for us, and he had something better in store for us. We just didn't know at the time that we would have to go through what we had to go through to get there.
I went into the nursery that we had prepared, and I got down on my knees and prayed flat on my face and said, Lord, I just give this up to you, and I just have to trust you. And I know that you have something bigger in store for us, something better. And that's when we found out just a few months later that there was another baby for us, and it was a baby girl, and she was half Guatemalan.
It was March 29th, 2011 that Ariana was born. I remember standing in the waiting room waiting to see my new daughter, and she was absolutely amazing when we first saw her.
And then it wasn't long, about a year after Ariana was born, that we felt the Lord leading us to get involved in missions. We knew that God was going to call us back to Guatemala to serve the people. We knew when we went to Guatemala, we saw the needs there were great. And so we began praying for God to show us how and when and where. So God led us to Life Point Church in January 2012. And about 6 weeks after going to Life Point, we found out that they were getting ready to launch their World Outreach program, and we found out that they were going to start in Guatemala. And so we went on our first mission trip in June 2012. It's hard to explain, but we felt like we were leaving our home when we left Guatemala, and we were coming here, and this was foreign to us. And God just confirmed and reconfirmed that he was calling us there. He was leading our family there for full-time missions. I guess a year later, we went back to Guatemala to talk to Carlos, the founder of the ministry there at Hope of Life International, to just share our hearts with him. And we told him that we had the desire to do family-style orphan care, and we just wanted to know, what did he think about it? And he said that's a dream of his, and he wanted to make this a reality. He wanted to work with us to bring family-style orphan care to Hope of Life. So we're in the process of raising the funds and preparing to sell everything and move to Guatemala probably in about 5 or 6 months. We will have 10 kids plus our 2, so it'll be a total of 12 kids in our home. We'll be taking care of them. We'll be the parent figures. It's crucial for kids to have a mother and a father figure in order to be raised up, in a stable environment, to learn the love of Jesus in a tangible way, versus an institution setting where they have bonds broken every day.
I honestly never thought that I would be a person who would be selling everything I have in the United States to go take care of children in another country. However, with that being said, there's nothing now that could change my mind about doing this. This is something that I know deep down in my heart that this is what God's plan is for myself and my family.
I wouldn't trade any of it. I wouldn't trade the heartache or the tears, because all of that has played a part in shaping us and preparing us for this calling. And we're excited. We're ready to go, and it can't come soon enough. And we're just walking in faith and trusting the Lord.